Struggling Suns.
The Suns, I don't think Kevin Durant's the biggest reason for their struggles, but
He's been amazing.
you know, you look at how the Suns looked with Chris Paul. Devin Booker doesn't have these leadership qualities either. Chris Paul had to be that for them. And when you just have two gifted scorers that they just like to score the ball, you know, they're not bringing those other intangibles that you need for a well-rounded team to succeed. But I think the Suns are struggling because the front office was just impatient. That's just the key word of these last couple of seasons. Do you trade for Kevin Durant 10 times out of 10? Absolutely. It was Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and some first-round picks. But the DeAndre Ayton trade was awful.
Horrendous.
They traded DeAndre Ayton and Toumani Camara for basically Grayson Allen. That's the only player remaining from that trade on their team. Right now, Kamara's playing well. He's one of the best defenders on the planet. You could desperately insert him in this lineup with the Suns and Ayton, and they'd be really good.
Oh, my God.
Ayton, even with the effort issues, is a 16-10 big at worst. And is he a great defender? No. Is he passable? Yes. And then you look at the Bradley Beal trade. You know, 4 first-round pick swaps, 5 to 6 second-round picks. You trade Chris Paul, who's a great leader. I understand he was washed with Phoenix, but strapping yourself to Bradley Beal, who has never been a winning player, is also not a leader by all the times that we saw him pout on the Wizards bench despite him wanting to be there, and he got paid knowing they're a losing situation, but you can't pass up that type of money. It was a death sentence for this team. You know, I think they haven't done a bad job filling out the roster, but when you have 3 guys that all play pretty much the same and none of them are trying to get the best out of one another, this is the result you get. It's one of the worst teams in basketball. Had they not made those moves, you're talking about a Suns team that has Chris Paul, Booker, Kamara, Durant, Ayton, and off the bench, Tyus Jones was a vet minimum signing. They could have still got him. Royce O'Neal, they could have still got him. Ryan Dunn, they could have still drafted him. Nick Richards, they just traded a second-round pick for him. They could have still got him. We're talking about a more well-rounded team who can actually be competitive in the West somewhat. But, you know, they made the bed that they're laying in it right now, and they were just too impatient with their moves. So, you know, the front office deserves most of the blame, and it's probably Matt Ishbia because he got impatient and he wanted a championship automatically, and he overvalued just how much of a franchise player Devin Booker is, and also how big of a difference Kevin Durant would make without those leadership qualities.
I think you really spoke nothing but fact right there. The offense, too, is so weird because obviously you have 2 of the best scorers on the planet, but like you said, they don't uplift one another. And Devin Booker really this season, if you ask me, listen, Riv, you call me out on it all the time saying that I said that Devin Booker's the best shooting guard in the league, and this year he's been far from that.
Hold him accountable.
It's been sad. It's been unfortunate. He's not been consistent whatsoever on the defensive side of the ball. There's nobody that is left for blame. Everybody deserves some type of acknowledgement there. This team really lacks any type of drive on that side of the ball. 26th in defensive rating. Any team that goes into their building, goes ahead and they put up points, shoots all over them, goes ahead and finishes at the basket at a high rate. They don't have great center play either. Nurkic getting traded off the team, obviously that was going to happen because Nurkic was such a negative. But it doesn't matter. This team's just devoid of talent, overwhelming talent. And I don't disagree with you because if you had Kamara, if you had Ayton, even Chris Paul at this old of an age, who could be the presence in the locker room that you desperately need, Joel, you're spot on, truthfully. I mean, there's just no heart being played for the Phoenix Suns right now. And Kevin Durant, who I will never question his heart and his drive for the game, he's the one that I completely leave out of this, truthfully, because I think that offensively, night in, night out, he's giving you his best effort. But the fact that there's moments where we don't see him get an overwhelming amount of attempts because there's so many different mouths to feed, and it still leads to underwhelming basketball. There just needs to be someone of either Booker or KD. Realistically, it does need to be KD, but obviously, again, it's not his team. It's Devin Booker's team. And Devin Booker should be the one who understands, yes, I'm the guy. This is my team. This is my franchise. Kevin Durant came to play with me. I need to be the one to galvanize all the guys. And like you mentioned, Joel, that's just not who he is. He's just not that type of guy.
Yeah, I mean, the Suns right now, they're playing with fire, right? They're out of the play-in. They have the number 1 hardest schedule remaining as well. And they're not taking care of business, right? Before the All-Star break, they lost back-to-back games to Portland. They just lost a game to the Raptors. Before they lost a game to the Spurs without Wemby. They were in a dogfight down to the 4th quarter against the Chicago Bulls. So even against teams that we think they're clearly more talented than, they can't even take a business then. Like they do play some of these top teams close, like the Rockets and the Grizzlies. They were, within 7 or so points, but when it comes down to it, they haven't been able to really close the gap. It's on the front office and ownership, right? I mean, the KD trade, I agree with you, Joel. You make it 10 times out of 10. But when you also make a deal of that seismic proportion, you're giving up 2 young, good two-way players, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, plus 4 or 5 unprotected first-round picks. You're not, you're basically saying this is my core, right? Like Chris Paul, Ayton, Book, KD. We're going to have to make some pieces work, but this is the core we think can get us to the finals, can win us the finals. Just a couple years prior, of course, they made that run. The year after, they had some injuries with Chris Paul and the Ayton question, they make the trades and whatnot to try to round out that roster. But the Bradley Beal trade, that was really the nail in the coffin. Any chance they had, any flexibility they had to make roster moves around the edges basically went out the window there. And I remember when they made that trade, that was my first thought was, sure, Bradley Beal's a great player. Like, right, one-on-one, you'd rather have Bradley Beal than a lot of players in the NBA, especially at that time, the years he was coming off the Wizards, putting up crazy numbers. But it was also just so obvious that the fit was weird, right? When you look at all the teams that are towards the top of the NBA now, like the OKC Thunder, for example, they didn't go and try to get some score first guard to pair with Shea. No, we're going to get Alex Caruso. We're going to get Isaiah Hartenstein. The Celtics didn't get some, big wing guy that needs the ball in his hand. We're going to go get Derek White and Drew Holiday. Last year, the Dallas Mavericks didn't get a ball-dominant scorer. No, they got P.J. Washington and Gafford. All of these teams that have been some of the most successful over the last couple of years. Obviously, Dallas is different now, but they all make moves to make their team better around their stars, to make them better around Luka and Kyrie and the Jays. The Suns just doubled down on what they already had. They just doubled down on a guy that's going to get buckets, going to get a lot of shots at the mid-range. But other than that, what's he really doing to uplift KD and Devin Booker? Obviously, if Kamara they knew what they had, they would have kept him. But also, would he have ever blossomed into the player that he is now in Portland, where he's getting all of these minutes, he's getting this opportunity? Because he would be an afterthought if he was with Phoenix right now. He would have a very small defined role, and for better or for worse, he would never be the player he is right now, maybe down the line, but not this soon into his career. So I do think, like you mentioned, Joel, it's impatience. And when you have the opportunity to get these big star-named players like Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, it's easy to be like, yo, let's go and get it, without sitting back and thinking, how does this team shape up with the rest of the league? How do these pieces complement each other? Instead, we're just trying to acquire talent, even though it doesn't really fit well.
Yeah, the Bradley Beal deal really hurt them. They haven't been able to recover, and it's gone from missing out on players to, missing out on coaches too. Like, you've brought in these coaches to try to build a foundation, to try to build this system that you just don't have the players for. And I think the Suns right now are at a position where they just can't play defense. Like, offensively, like Drew mentioned, sometimes it looks funny, sometimes it looks clogged up. Sometimes they get in these funks where they can't score for a while, and you would think that looks crazy, but Devin Booker hasn't been his consistent self. Bradley Beal is not the same player he once was for $53 million, and I think Phoenix is at this tough road where they had an opportunity to move KD at the deadline. KD has spoken that he didn't want to be moved at the deadline. He didn't want to change teams in the middle of the season. With Phoenix, you don't have your draft picks, so now you're sitting at a situation where you have Kevin Durant who's playing at the best. He's still playing at an elite level, a top 10 player. You have Devin Booker, who's now going to be coming off a bad season. How do you rebuild? Bradley Beal still has that no trade clause. Yeah, you have Ryan Dunn. You barely play him, so that's the weird thing about it. He's probably your best on-ball defender, and you barely give him consistent runs. Royce O'Neal is a solid rotation player. You don't really have a quality rotation at bigs, and your guards are spotty. Defensively, they're not there. Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal's a nut-ass defensive guard trio. Phoenix has just had multiple years of malpractice in the front office, and I think you got to make the tough decisions this summer. Like this summer, you got to start, swallowing that pill and making these tough-ass decisions. That's thinking about moving Kevin Durant. That's thinking about moving Devin Booker. That's starting the whole process over, because there is no good avenue for this team, and there's a moment where you can let Kevin Durant walk for nothing and get nothing back for him. And I really, really, really doubt Devin Booker is going to be cool with just another repeat of a rebuild, because that rebuild took a really long time for Phoenix last time. And you know, you just failed him, essentially. You failed him. You failed Kevin Durant in building this team into being at least competent. Like, they haven't made a WCF. They haven't really come close. Like, they've made, what, 1 second-round berth?
That's it.
That's it. And it's been first-round
They got
exit.
swept.
And stuff. Like, yeah, it hasn't been good. So, last year, you know, you had a high seed. What was that, a 3 seed versus a 6 seed, if I'm not mistaken, or a 4 or 5, something like that. And you went out there, you got embarrassed by Minnesota. So, Phoenix has to, you know, this summer look themselves in the mirror and realize what they are and make some hard decisions.
Will they, though? Will Matt Ishbia, with all of the moves he's made, really say, you know what, we tried, but because I think you're right, Riv. They should, right?
Kevin
They
Durant
should
gets
really
older,
entertain
Devin
it.
Booker gets older.
I think Kevin Durant is a lock to get traded.
I think
this
he's
summer.
gone too.
I think Devin Booker is going to be a tougher conversation. If it were me, I don't know if we can build a team around Devin Booker. He's already shown us that he can't be the very best player on the championship team. You know, so is it worth trying to make the play-in or the playoffs every year with him with like garbage scraps around him, or just starting over? I think the number one thing for Phoenix is that they got to just get their picks back. And if there's no avenue to get that, I can see them keeping Devin Booker, because if they don't have their picks, there's really no
point being
way
bad.
for them to even tank. So they have to have an attraction in the city that's worth buying a ticket over, because once Kevin Durant leaves and D Book's the only thing left standing, they're going to have nothing.